everyone, today I am going to be doing a book haul. I feel like it has been too long since the last time I did one of these on my channel and I felt that I was due another one. So this is more or less all of the books that I acquired over the summer months. I don't have quite as many as I usually would because I've been trying to cut back on my book buying, but nonetheless I still have quite a few to show you. So without further ado, I am going to start off with the books that were sent to me either from publishers or authors. The first two books were actually sent to me from the same publisher. The first one is called Arsenic and Adobo, and I don't actually know what the book is about plot-wise because I know it's a mystery and I like to go into those blind, but I've heard so many people talk about this on BookTube and I've heard nothing but good things about it. Like, I swear all of the reviews on Goodreads are like 4 and 5 stars, so I'm really excited to pick it up and find out what all the hype is about. So like I said, I know it's a mystery, but I have specifically heard people refer to it as a cozy mystery, which I know is like a whole genre in itself, but I don't really know what the difference is between that and just like a regular mystery. So if anybody would like to enlighten me in the comments, please do. But I'm excited to read my first ever cozy mystery because I've never read one before, I don't think. And then the second book actually sounds even more up my alley. It's actually a review copy, so the title is on the back and it is called People of Abandoned Character. So on the front of the book it says, "He is my husband, to honor and obey until murder do us part." So if that doesn't grip you, the synopsis definitely will. So this is a historical fiction book in which we're following our main character who marries this man, and shortly after they return from their honeymoon, he starts acting a bit strangely, and then a woman turns up murdered, and she is a little concerned that her husband might be Jack the Ripper. So that just sounds fantastic. I am so excited to read this book. It's definitely going to be on my October TBR because it sounds like the perfect time of year to pick this book up. But yeah, if you couldn't tell, I am very excited to read this book. I really hope it lives up to my expectations because unlike the first book, I haven't heard many people, if any at all, talk about this one. So I'm pretty excited for it. And then the final book that was sent to me is called Guised Passage, and this is another book that I don't know too much about because I know it falls into the thrillery kind of genre, possibly even horror a little bit. But what I do know is that it is a survival story in which we follow 4 friends that take a hike through a canyon, and I assume it takes a bit of a sinister turn. So once again, it sounds really interesting, and I don't read a whole lot of survival stories, so I'm interested to see what I will think of this one and if it is a genre that I would enjoy. But all 3 of these books, I just realized, actually seem like it's the perfect time of year to read them. Like, they're all a little bit spooky or mysteries, and I think this is a really good time to pick them up. So I think you might see all 3 of these books on a future TBR very, very soon. Now moving on to all of the other books that I acquired from various different places. The first one is actually a poetry collection, and it is called I Would Leave Me If I Could by Halsey. I have actually read this book twice. I read the physical copy and then I also listened to the audiobook, which was narrated by Halsey. And I always say I'm not really a poetry person, but occasionally I will come across a collection that I really enjoy, and this was one of them. So if you also aren't really a poetry person, maybe you should try picking this book up, but I would definitely look up the trigger warnings for it before you do pick it up because there are a lot of things that go down in this poetry collection and I don't want anybody to be caught off guard. And I actually got this 50% off at Barnes & Noble's, like 50% off sale. I don't know. Apparently it's a thing that they do like annually or something like that, but I've never heard about it until this year, so this was the only book I bought from that sale. But anyways, yes, moving on. I also picked up The Betrayed by Kira Cass. This is the second and final book in the Betrothed duology, which I read the first book last year and I didn't love it, but I also didn't hate it, and I have to say Kira Cass is just one of those authors where even though I don't think she has the best books in the world, at least not now, maybe when I read them when I was 16 and I was head over heels in love with Maxim from the Selection series, but anyways, I still think I will probably always read her books even if the writing like never gets any better because she's just like one of those authors that was such a big part of getting me back into reading. So even though I didn't really like the first book, I am still interested in picking up the second one, and who knows, maybe her writing got better after the second book. I don't know. I'm optimistic, okay? The next book I picked up is called The Odyssey by Homer. This is like the exact opposite of the last book, but this is, of course, a book that everybody has heard about, and I feel like everybody has read except for me. I've actually never read The Odyssey or the Iliad or like any of those things, despite telling people that I love anything that has to do with mythology, and yet I've never read this book. So I'm trying to fix that. So I bought the book. It was $10. It's like the flexi-bound covers. Oh, there's my receipt. It's like the flexi-bound covers from Barnes & Noble. So I thought $10 was a pretty decent price for how pretty the book is. So yeah, I bought it, and I'm gonna make an attempt to read it. I don't know how that's going to go because I can only imagine how the writing is, but we will see. I then have two books that I'm actually currently reading, and I just talked about both of them in my last video, so I'm not going to spend too much time on them here, but the first one is called 14 Ways to Die by Vincent Ralph. This is a young adult mystery book in which we follow our main character called Jessica, whose mother was murdered by a serial killer called the Magpie Man when she was a child. Now she is 16 and he has killed 12 other people. Her mother was his first victim, and he has yet to be caught. Our main character ends up getting the opportunity to be a part of this YouTube show where they like live stream people's lives of like people where strange things have happened to them or something like that, and people just like watch their lives live streamed, and she wants to do it to try to draw more attention to this serial killer to see if that can help get him caught. Like I said in my last video, the only reason I'm still reading this book is because it has extremely short chapters and I just kind of want to finish it, but other than that, this book is not very good at all. I don't think it's that well written, and it is extremely unrealistic. Like, you really have to suspend your belief when it comes to the stuff happening in this book. Like, beyond Nancy Drew level of like suspending your belief, this book is just, it's really not that great. So we're just gonna move on to the next one, and I will talk about that book in my September wrap-up. But the next one that I have here is Air of Fire by Sarah J. Maas. This is, of course, the third book in the Throne of Glass series. I'm in the middle of reading it. I did have the book from the library, but I ended up having to return it, and I just wanted to finish the book, so I just went out and I bought a paperback copy because for some reason it's extremely difficult to find this series in hardcover, like in stores anymore, and even on like Amazon, where I thought I would be able to find it for really cheap, any like reasonably new editions are really expensive. So I just bought the paperback copy, which is fine, and at this point I'm considering just buying like the box set in paperback just so I can read through the whole series and I don't have to worry about waiting for each one to come in at the library. So once again, I don't have much else to say. I will talk about this book hopefully in my September wrap-up if I finish it by then. And then the final book that I have that is fiction, all of the rest of the books in this haul are going to be nonfiction. So my final fiction book is called The Institute by Stephen King. I totally picked this book up on a whim after reading the back of it in the middle of a Walmart. So I'm just going to read you the back of the book and hopefully it will grip you just as much as it gripped me, which I know some people hate when booktubers just read off the back of the book, but like truly I feel like me describing it to you wouldn't do it justice the same way that just reading the back of the book would. So that is what I'm going to do. I'm sorry if it's a pet peeve for anybody that I'm doing this. So this is what it says. In the middle of the night, intruders silently murder young Luke Ellis's parents and steal him away from his suburban Minneapolis home, an operation that takes less than 2 minutes. Luke will wake up in a faraway room that looks just like his own, except there's no window, and outside his door are several other doors, behind which are several other kids with very special abilities and who arrived at wherever here is in the same way Luke did. They're all localized in the area known as front half, which is a good thing. No one ever returns from back half. Nevertheless, the incarcerated children are intended to serve, given that the staff is ruthlessly dedicated to extracting the force of their extra-normal gifts. Cooperation is rewarded and resistance means brutality. And as each new victim disappears to back half, Luke becomes increasingly desperate to somehow find a way out and get help, even though no one has ever escaped from the living hell known as the Institute. So hopefully I sold you on that. I don't know know about you, but it just sounds like such a fascinating story. It sounds like it would make a fantastic movie, and with the way that Stephen King writes, I feel like I can always picture his books in my head just like I'm watching a film, because he always has such descriptive writing. So I feel like this is going to be such a good book. I've read a couple of his other books and I have enjoyed all of them, so hopefully this will be no exception. Fingers crossed, might have just jinxed it. Nonetheless, I feel like this is going to be another book that will show up on one of my TBR videos very, very soon. So like I said, all of the rest of the books in this haul are going to be nonfiction, starting off with Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. This is a book that I don't really know what to expect from. All that I know about it is that it's about Christianity. Shocking, I know, you wouldn't be able to tell from the title. So yeah, I'm very excited to pick this up because I've heard really good things about this book, and not just from people who are Christians, but I've also seen some people pick this book up who aren't religious and they have good things to say about it also. So I'm just fascinated to see like what is going to be in this book, and I think I might vlog when I read it so that I can like discuss my thoughts in real time rather than at a wrap up at the end of the month when I forget everything. So let me know if that's something that you would like to see. And then the last 4 books that I have are actually all about New York, and 2 of them I have already read and I talked about in my August wrap up. So once again, I'm just gonna go over them really quickly as to not repeat myself. So the first one we have here is Catskill Ghosts by Linda Lee Mackin. This is a collection of stories / experiences of ghostly encounters that people have had in the Catskills in New York. The reason I picked this book up specifically was because when I was a kid, the Catskills is an area where me and my family would drive through when we were going to visit family. I haven't been there in a really long time, but I thought it would be interesting to read this book and then maybe go and visit some of the places that had haunted experiences and stuff like that. But unfortunately, this book didn't deliver like I thought it was going to. So as I mentioned in my wrap up, which I know I said I wasn't going to repeat myself, but here I am, some of this book felt authentic, like real actual encounters that people had. Like it did seem like true kind of stuff, whereas the other half of the book seemed like a lot of sort of fluff. Like you could clearly tell that it was a lot of made up stories. There weren't any like witnesses of that people had seen anything happen at these places. It was just kind of like ghost stories that you could tell somebody had clearly made up, but like they weren't even that interesting. Like if you're gonna make up a story, at least make it cool. So yeah, half of this book was interesting, half of the book felt like it didn't really need to be there, and this book is already pretty short, so that's saying something. So yeah, I can't say that I would necessarily recommend this book because any of these things you could literally just find by looking up online, and it would probably be more interesting and there'd probably be more pictures and stuff like that. So yeah, I was a bit disappointed with this book. If you want to hear more about my thoughts on it, you can check out my August wrap up. And then the other book that I had already read was called The Abandoned Catskills Deserted Playgrounds by Cindy Vasco. So this is not really a book, it's more of a photography book of abandoned places around the Catskills. I absolutely loved reading this book. One of the places I sort of recognized, it's the Catskill Game Farm, which closed in 2006, and I genuinely don't know. I tried asking my mother, but I don't know if she remembered either, if that was a place that I went to when I was a kid, but I do know that it was a place that she used to go to. So it was interesting looking at those pictures, and as well, under all of the pictures are captions that tell you a little bit about each place, which was just fascinating to learn about, especially when it came to some of the adult care facilities that are photographed in this book. One of the places, I talked about this in my August wrap up, but one of them closed down and was abandoned because 2 of the patients wandered off, died, and nobody noticed for hours that they were gone, and that is why it closed down and was abandoned like it was. So it was very fascinating learning about some of these places, but it was also equally interesting seeing some of the homes that were abandoned, some of these being like huge mansions that were left with all of the furniture inside and like toys. You could tell that children had lived there at one point, and we don't know why they would just up and leave all of their belongings behind. So while learning about the places was interesting, it was also equally intriguing, wondering like what could have possibly happened that would make a whole family just up and leave their beautiful mansion home and stuff like that. So this was a really fun book for me. Along the same lines, I picked up this book called Abandoned New York. So this is not specific to any town. It takes place over many different places around New York. I think a lot of them were in more of the New York City area, but I've kind of flipped through this book, but I haven't read it like front to back like I did the other book. I'm really hoping that it will be similar to the other one, even though they have different authors, but I'm hoping it will include like facts about the actual places that are being photographed. So we'll see, and I definitely plan to read it this month, and then I will talk about it in my September wrap-up. And the final book I have to show you is called Spooky New York. This is tales of hauntings, strange happenings, and other local lore. So I think this is going to be filled with urban legends, ghost stories, and hopefully some like actual things that are just strange things that have happened all around New York. At the beginning of this book, there's like a table of contents, and it's broken down by each story, and underneath it says where each one takes place, and this is all over New York. Some of them are in New York City, but some of them are all over upstate New York. So I think this is going to be really interesting. Urban legends, ghost stories, strange things that have happened are all very much up my alley, and once again, it's like a perfect book to read this time of year. So it's another one that I hope to get to this month, and then I will talk to you about it in my September wrap-up, and hopefully it lives up to the expectations that I have set for it. So yeah, those are all of the books that I have acquired over the past few months. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know if you've read any of these books and which ones you think that I should prioritize that I haven't read yet. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!